Hi, everyone, and we are so delighted to welcome Staff Sergeant Reginald Lyerly, who served with the U.S. Army and is a combat veteran. And he is now the Brightside Director for Sales and Marketing. He is also going to be our anchor host, where he will interview people that will help veterans and executives who are transitioning into new careers and looking for business opportunities and just finding their way. And Reginald has himself transitioned, and so he will share during the broadcast about his own experience in the transition process. And he's just here to serve you and help you. And so if you like the broadcast, have a comment, a question, write it in the chat below. And if you need to reach us, and definitely go and subscribe to Brightside, DiscoverBrightside.com, because we need you to support our channel. And the way that you support the channel is by subscribing, liking, commenting, helping us with the algorithms. So without further ado, our guest for today is Hank Balovic, and he is a former FBI representative, and he has written a book that many of you are going to need. And we want you to buy the book and comment, write a review, tell us what you think, because faulty background checks could hurt you in a big way. So without me giving away the whole story, I'm going to take you into the studio for this very important discussion. And I'd like to hand it over to Staff Sergeant Reginald. And once again, welcome to the Brightside family. And we're so excited to have you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Brightside family. My name is Reginald Lyerly, and it's great to be with you with Get on the Bright Side. We hope to help a lot of veterans, help a lot of people. I remember when I was within my last year of the military, I was transitioning and was getting ready for life after the service, wondering and navigating through what was that like? What was that going to be like if I was going to enter the government system? Was it going to be a business owner? Was I going to be a contractor? And I'm sure a lot of different veterans have a lot of those same questions. And so it is good to discuss this topic with someone that understands the process and can better educate us on what that's like. So Hank, it is great. It is great to have you here, and it's great to be with you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you too. And I would just like to add that I am a Navy veteran.
Well,
thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, we got two veterans here. Very good.
Thank you.
That's great. We want to help veterans, and it's good to have another veteran on the line. We talked about different things with transitioning and background checks. We want to learn more about your book, Hank. Could you tell us a little more about it and why you wrote it?
Okay, well, after I left the Bureau, I was an agent for 7 years. And the reason I left was I got another transfer, couldn't go there, family considerations and whatever. So I got into private security, and I wound up being a security director for a couple corporations. Then we moved to Florida, and I got involved in background screening because I saw there was a big need for legal background screening. I want to note that there are over 100 companies, background screening companies, that have been sued for violations of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. That's the legislation that mandates how background screening is supposed to be done. And it's a law. So if you violate the law, you can be sanctioned and you can be sued. And these companies have taken it upon themselves to just wing it, do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. That affects the people that are applying for jobs. So out of over 100 background screening companies, as I said, have been sued for violating the law. Most people, when they hear the term Fair Credit Reporting Act, they say, oh, that's the TransUnion and Equifax. Those are the credit bureaus. Well, that's part of it. They regulate that as well. That was first. But then in 1970, they saw with the advent of background screening and the abuses that were going on, that they passed a law. Congress passed a law. I've got it in my notebook, 3-ring notebook. There are 100 pages of rules and regulations. So when I started in the business, that's when my competition, I would see that they were breaking the law left and right, not doing what they were supposed to do. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book on this. And I just got all my notes and emails together, and then I put it together in the form of a book. And I'll show you what.
Okay.
Background checks. Here it is.
Awesome.
And it's 360 pages, and I've had some people characterize it as a manual, a survival manual for applicants, because you don't know when you apply for a job what background screening company they're going to use. There's one company called Hire Right. Actually, they should be dubbed Hire Wrong. 129 times they've been sued. Recently, they paid $28 million for abusing the rights of applicants. It turned out to be a class action lawsuit. And one thing about class action lawsuits, they start with one person. And what happens, the lawyer files that lawsuit, then he makes a motion for what's called discovery. He can get all the documents pertaining to his applicant or any other applicant that has been harmed in the same manner. This one where they paid the 28.8 million, there were 700,000 members in that class. That's incredible.
Wow.
That's how many they abused with their illegal activities.
Okay.
It's mind-boggling when you come to figure, how can they continue on like this? It's very simple. They make billions of dollars. When they do a background check, they charge a lot of money. These companies pay. And interestingly enough, the companies wind up getting sued as well. Because say if you apply for a job and they brand you a sex offender or any type criminal, now the company takes action. They're not going to hire you. This is what the veterans need to know. Because you're not going to get a job if you fail that background check. And here we get into the rights, just like criminals have rights. The Miranda rights, you have a right to remain silent, anything can be said, etc. Well, here, the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, is mandated that you are entitled to a copy of that report, that background screening report. What do companies say to applicants that request it? You can't have that. That's confidential information. It's secret. Only we can get it. That's a violation of the law. Also, if they are going to take what's called adverse action, they're required against, this is all in the book, and it's all in, I'll show you here. This is my notepad. This is Fair Credit Reporting Act right here. 99 pages of this stuff. I've read it all numerous times.
Wow.
So I've done the heavy lifting for you. It's in the book. So what are you entitled to? If, for example, that veteran goes in and they say, hey, sorry, Joe, not going to be able to give you a job. We're just not going to hire you. Sometimes and I just talked to a guy yesterday at a big dealership in South Florida. He said, well, we just don't tell him that we did a background check. We just didn't like the way he combed his hair or whatever. I said, that's subterfuge. The law says if you deny somebody a job, take what's called adverse action, in whole or in part based on a background check, you have to do three things. Number one, you have to send him an adverse action letter or notice. It can be in the form of an email. It could be in the form of a letter.
Okay.
In addition to that, you have to include a copy of that background report. Then the third thing you have to do is give them a brochure, 4-page document entitled Your Rights Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Unfortunately, the government agencies, I'll tell you, they stubbed their toe on this one. They talk all about the credit bureaus, and they don't tell you anything about your rights in the background check. Unbelievable, but anyway, it's true. That's why you need to buy the book and have the book. Like I said, it's a guide for dealing with these companies. These companies, unfortunately, are, I hate to use the term nefarious, but that's what they are. They are going to wheel and deal to try and get out of obeying the law. So that's why I wrote the book, to get the word out to the applicants and also these that use them, so that they obey the law and they treat the applicants with fairness and dignity. And our motto is we think that it's very important to be fair and decent with applicants. So that's how I got started.
Well, that's good to know, Hank. And you provided us a lot of information, and that's great. And I'll tell you, I work in the cybersecurity industry as a staff and recruiter. I'm a senior recruiter for that area, for that field, and I get a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of candidates, a lot of applicants, and a lot of them require that. And sometimes they don't know why they get hired. They're not getting hired, and they don't get and they're not notified, and they don't know this information. So this is very, very valuable. In terms of that. I also work in the financial literacy space. A lot of people, when they think of FCRA, they really just think about TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. They don't think about that encompasses way more than just that one particular thing. So I'm definitely going to let people know that they should get this book and they should read it and they should better educate themselves so that they understand what their rights are when it's time to be able to apply for work or anything that they want to do, especially if they're leaving the service and they want to re-enter the civilian sector, and they want to be better equipped than they are. I think this is a very good starting point.
Exactly. And one of the things I wanted to add along with that, supposing they did not get that job, they should know that they were the subject of a background investigation, background check, because they're supposed to have been given an authorization to conduct the background check. The two documents they should have been given. One is disclosure that they're going to do a background check, the company.
That's right.
One paragraph. The second one is the authorization. And in the authorization, there's another thing I found. I would say 50% of the authorizations are illegal because they omit one important fact that the applicant needs to know, and that is they have a right to a report. They block that out. They don't want anybody to know that because they don't want to have to defend what they've done. By the way, I'm going through this is on my index.
Okay.
The important thing to know is not only have over 100 background screening companies been sued, but 75 of the Fortune 1000 companies have been sued as well. Why? They've been sued because it's, in effect, it's under a conspiracy type thing, and I'm not going to get into 18 U.S.C. 371 anyway. But they don't want the corporations acted on an illegal background check. They branded somebody a criminal or they've done some other activity. They don't want that to get out. However, once the lawsuits are filed and they branded somebody a criminal, now they're open for a defamation suit.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of that. And when you go through it, for example, Advance Auto, Alcoa, Airmark, Home Depot, Lowe's, they've all been sued. Chipotle Grill, Dillard's, Frontier Communications, H&R Block, Levi Strauss. This is how pervasive it is. PNC Financial Services, you mentioned.
Oh, wow. So these are well-known companies that have been named.
Ryder, State Street, TEC Holdings, Uber Technologies, Verizon. They've all been sued and paid millions.
Oh, you've named a few people that deal in technologies, and I work in that, and I deal with those industries. Yeah, so this is good to know that it affects that industry as well.
It's amazing how sloppy these corporations are. Oftentimes, all I had to do was read the report. For example, if the applicant's name is John Doe, and then they look at the report and it's Oscar Wilde, that's what we call in the business a clue. CLUE. That's all there is to it. And a lot of times when these people bring a suit, it's a slam dunk. They're called prima facie cases because here's the law.
Mm-hmm.
Show the page. Here's what they did. Here's the application. Here's what they failed to do. Now, it's just a case of how much money you're going to give us.
You know, I remember when I was an Army recruiter, and it's hard to believe this was close to 20 years ago. And I was in Pennsylvania, and I remember doing background checks for the state on an applicant that was applying for military service. Whatever is found, that applicant has to know whatever the deposition is. They have to know. I know I wouldn't have a career if I did a background check on someone and I didn't tell that applicant what was going on. That would have been the wrong answer. So I definitely can understand why that could be such a massive issue with these different companies.
And you know, when I do seminars, and a lot of times companies are in there, property management companies, car dealerships, all these different people. And I say to them, of course the applicants are being branded as criminals. But if that's happening because of a mix-up, there's sloppy background screening, what about the real criminals? What about the rapists and the thieves?
I know, right?
Yeah.
They're getting away. And we got a company on the west coast of Florida as a customer because of a goofy background check. Had an applicant. The company did a background check, gave him a clean bill of health.
Okay.
But the owner of the company just said there's something about this guy I just don't know. So he got on his computer and did a Google search. Google, no highfalutin going to county criminal records, national law. Google had him in there on 3 arrests and convictions.
Oh my God.
Obviously, he fired the background screening company, but I tell this to these during my seminars when I have these people in there. It's a two-edged sword.
Here's my question.
Not only do they misbrand, but now they're letting some of the criminals work in your place.
But Hank, this is what I think about. Yeah, Google is excellent for finding information, but there's more than one person under a specific name. How do they know for sure that it was that person? And I guess they looked the name. They thought it was them. You know,
they did do. They verified the information that was in Google. Either they contacted somebody, police, whatever it was, but it was very new. And of course, we're in South Florida. Some names are very, very tough, like Rivera, or Lopez.
Okay.
Hey, do you realize how many? It drives us up a wall because now we've got to go in and how many of those? We've actually had people with a Hispanic name have the same date of birth. So it makes it up harder, but you've got to go. Don't forget common decency.
Yes.
Got to do the extra mile to make sure that applicant that they branded a criminal or they that's in the record is a criminal, some type of criminal.
So people have been unfairly branded because they didn't really do their homework checking that person out.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And they're using stale databases. You're required under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to use, what's the term they use? You must use the most comprehensive techniques available for maximum accuracy. And that means county records. Don't go to a stale database that's 30, 60 days, or maybe a year old. You're not getting up-to-date information, and a lot of times they get people's names mixed up. But this is a run it through the mill type of business. They want that report to be done very quickly so they can collect their money and make, their $1 billion a year.
Oh, wow.
I've actually got a list of that 107 actually background screening companies. There's a company called Checkar, sued 160 times. They were just sued again 2 weeks ago. Same stuff. It's outrageous. And you know something? I've talked to some people on radio and newspaper, but it's all hidden. Nobody wants to really get in and report it. So the word has to get out. And I applaud you folks for putting on this little podcast so that you're getting the word out.
Well, we're glad that you're here because this is going to shed some light on some things that people need to know, because we know there are people that they've applied for work. They were told they couldn't get hired. They may not have fully known the reason why. And then you got people transitioning into from the military service back to civilian life and making sure that and expecting one outcome and ending up with another. And it's amazing. And especially and I think about the example that you talked about with Florida, because especially in Florida, some names are a very common name. And it might be so common that they may have that same first name and surname. And if they're not thorough enough, wow, it's just amazing. The thing that is even more amazing is that how are all these companies continue to get sued, but they're still allowed to remain in business?
That's a good question. First of all, there are no criminal penalties. I would love to see some criminal penalties. In a company that has been sued 160 times, it's outrageous. And not only by private attorneys or plaintiffs' attorneys, but by the Federal Trade Commission. Now,
okay.
I call them the flaccid Federal Trade Commission because they really are. They're lazy. For the 40 years they've been in, maybe they've got a handful of cases that they went after. And you've got a victim has to go to the FTC and say, look, this is what's happened, blah, blah, blah. Will you do something about it? They're not interested. And one thing I need to get in about the reports is this. Supposing a veteran, because we're talking about veterans, they've been denied a job. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, we're not going to tell you really why we haven't given you this job, why you've been rejected. They can say, because they filled out an authorization form, or they should have, but all they have to do is send a letter and say, I want a copy of my background screening report. Did you do a report? Now, if they find out through either that means or other means that they did in fact do one, now if they get a lawyer, and by the way, everybody says, oh, I don't have the money for a lawyer. Well, that's the bad news, but the good news is this is like a automobile accident. How many times have we seen on TV? Mm-hmm. You've been injured in an automobile accident, call the law firm of Joe Blow and Company.
Yes.
You don't owe us a nickel until we collect.
You're right. There are lawyers that would accept this case because they know they'll win.
The lawyers that are involved in FCRA lawsuits against employers and background screening companies, it's a slam dunk for them. So just like a automobile accident, if the person had hit you is at fault or there's any hint that they were at fault, the attorney's going to take it on a contingency basis. Same thing with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. They do very well because, as I said, they're prima facie cases, which means guilt on its face. And they're going to collect. Judge, how much are you going to give us? This is what they did. They branded them a criminal. They didn't give him adverse notice. They didn't give him a copy. Every time it's like a criminal case, it's a count. You rob one bank, two banks, three banks, a separate offense. The same thing with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Separate offense. They didn't get the report. They didn't get an authorization form. They didn't do this, that, and the other thing. And sometimes, and they're $1,000 for each count. So it adds. Now when you get those 700,000 in that class, now you're talking big bucks, millions that they have paid. And so that's something to bear in mind.
Wow.
Applicants, these veterans shouldn't be intimidated by the system. And all they have to do really is go to a FCRA attorney. And one thing I found with attorneys, I found this in when I was with the Bureau, a lot of incompetent attorneys. As a matter of fact, the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Warren Burger, said in his opinion, 76% of the attorneys are incompetent. That's coming from a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you, not to slam them too hard, but one thing I can appreciate them making some mistakes if they go into an area they're not familiar with, because the law's too complicated. You got commercial law, you got criminal law, you've got FCRA law. And I've seen, and looking at thousands of the lawsuits that I've read, see where they've made mistakes. I'm not an attorney, but I've read enough of these complaints that they're supposed to go in a separate format where they might have 5 causes of action, they list 3. Why are they leaving the money on the table? Anyway, that's I think the long and short of it. So veterans, good
give
right.
us some, sorry to interrupt, but give us some tips if somebody who's a veteran in transition or an executive and they're looking for a job or starting a business, looking to contract with the government. All these people have to do background checks. So what were the tips that you could give them? And then where can they get your book from? I think everybody should buy this book. We highly recommend it. And what are the tips that you could give someone who is going to go through a background check? Now, if you're a business trying to contract business with the government or a major corporation, you would be doing 100 background checks. So you need to know how to get this book and get this valuable information.
Well, I covered a lot of it already, but here's what they need to know. Number one, they have a right to a report. They have a right to all the documents they should ask for when they are told that we're going to do that. Hey, that's great. I welcome it because I'm a law-abiding citizen. However, I'd like a copy of the authorization. I'd like a copy of all the documents that I'm giving you, signing off on. I need that for my file. Now they've got some proof. Now, supposing they give them an illegal authorization, that's a violation of the law right then and there. So that's what they need to know. They need to know they're entitled to a copy of the report. They're entitled to, if they have been denied a job, what the reason was. If, again, in whole or in part by a background check, they're entitled to a copy of that report. Those are the important things.
And where can they get your book?
Okay. They can go online to faultybackgroundchecks.com.
Okay. So
and down on the bottom is we take credit cards. And although I had some people mail me checks, but anyway, I would prefer the credit card. This way we have a record.
Okay.
Faulty background.
Have it. Get the book, faultybackgroundchecks.com. And any last minute questions before we close out? Reginald?
No, but Hank, thank you so much, because you've given us a lot of information, and this is going to equip a lot of veterans that need this information, because there are a lot of people that don't know this, or they've been on the other end of an application process and they've had so many unanswered questions. And I feel like, and as stated previously in the interview, I think this is a valuable first step to being able to knowing what their rights are, and to be able to just to get a good foundation if they're looking to head in this direction. So this has definitely been worth it alone. And Hank, I certainly do thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
And let me get back there. So you're watching Discover Brightside. We are doing veterans in transition, executives in transition. This is a channel that will give you all the information to help you through that journey and empower you. And if you've been watching on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you see this video, write us a comment, subscribe to our channel in whichever channel you're watching it, because that's what keeps our channel going. And we need your support. So we need you to subscribe, because the more comments we get, the more algorithms we get, the more views we get, the more we can get this message out to more people. And share this video because people can get the benefit of watching this, and buy the book. So faultybackgroundchecks.com. Go get the book today. Get yourself familiar with what's going on so that you don't become a victim of a faulty background check, and you can protect yourself and your community. I say this all the time because when you get good information and you share it with people that you know, you're building a very powerful community of informed citizens. So don't forget to watch DiscoverBrightside.com. And we want to warmly welcome once again Staff Sergeant Reginald Lyerly, who will be the host for this channel. And didn't he do a good job? Write a comment, tell us what you think about him. And hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of him, and we'll be doing a lot more lives. Thank you for watching. Okay.